So this is one example of price forecasts. And here you see like the actuals in green, and then confidence intervals in blue, the lower and upper boundaries. And what does it? It uses different ways of statistical and mathematical and artificial intelligence to predict forecasts. We have our data science team working with your data, but as I said, it's always a common approach. You know, we always pick your brains, we take your estimates, we apply AI, and then you basically decide, well, the system will show up with a suggestion. But since nobody of us is capable of predicting prices next year, we would all be very rich if we could do that. Well, we apply different scenarios. But what we can do, we can work with this upper and lower boundaries. We can work with what we call components. And I think this is what's a kind of serious approach. Like we can work with cost models. We have the category tree, which I think you are going to have as well, like the category tree and then the different items to the category tree. So these are like examples from clients or demos. So you would have a component price development. So the system could connect to any external source. This table would be maintained and connected to any sources. Then you would have the option to add your flavor. You would have the full bill of material, talking about Direct, by the way. Yeah, so this would exactly be configured to your needs. So you see here that we have like the raw materials. For the raw materials, you could enter prices. For the product master, you would see the bill of materials. So for everything you might want to offer, you see like mapping material to product. I open this one so that you could see, for example, this product with this recipe consists of these raw materials. And for these raw materials, you might want to click on that. And then you could see where is it produced, for example, which overhead cost group would be attached, which material group, whatever. And then here you see these little arrows, and then you could switch to the prices. And for the prices, you might want to drill across the different components, for example, like we have seen a little ago. And then you might want to attach vendors. So here you see, for example, there is a supplier assessment dashboard looking into the dedicated supplier, into quality management, purchase, whatever. So it's going to take a couple of seconds to open up, whereas it loads. I want to show you the more holistic overview. So this, for example, is, and let's start one step earlier. Typically, we see our clients start with a top-down planning like this one. So you would see your product groups, and below your markets, or the other way around. Your regions here in this area and product groups below, so we don't care. But basically, you would always be able to change these targets, and these could be sales targets, revenue targets, or it could be cost limits, or it could be spending, saving targets. And the approach is always the same. So you could change this top level figure by example, and I need to look into the exact syntax. I think it's like this. So by either setting a new target or by changing like -5% or +5% or whatever, and then the system would break back the figures to lower levels. So then you would see a gap, and this could either be a gap between you know, the target revenue or the target spend or saving or whatever. And these gaps, they need to be closed, obviously. And talking about closing gaps, we're always talking about initiatives. And then we're talking about assigning initiatives to persons and keeping track of all these initiatives with teams and sending mails and having project performance management. So that's the whole idea of doing that. But on a very high level, you see there is this initial top-down target for sales, for example. And then you see what you have already sold, so the actuals. And this is an example of, let's say, March, somewhere, you know, when COVID hit 2 years ago. And then when you see, okay, this is what I have sold, next step would be, what do I have in my books, like the order intake, the contracted demand. So this is what we call the firm demand, because it's already contracted and it's very likely that you have that demand. And on top of that, we have different probabilities, like the named likely demand. This is where you know, for example, your client, but you do not know which products they might want to order. Or you know the product, but not the client. But you're pretty sure about this type of demand. And then you might want to add what we call the unnamed predicted, where you look into past data and say, from the seasonal demand, we expect this demand on top. And then there might still be obviously a gap between your demand and your management's targets. And this gap might be closed or not with what we call initiatives or sales campaigns. And if there is still a gap, you might want to tweak production, because obviously you might want to look into supply capacity and what you can produce. You might want to look into the production plan. You can click there. So it's very, like, how would I call it, integrated, right? So you would see on a weekly base, for example, your capacity, your production plans, even your shifts, if you're up to that. And this is how you can balance it. And if you find out that even with everything you have in mind in regards to demand, you cannot meet your initial target, you might want to work with a revised top-down planning and skip your initial planning. So you can either adjust demand, or you can adjust production. So this whole supply-demand balancing is at the heart of our products. And then you take it from there. So basically here is the price forecast. So this is one way how you can tackle it. So we have the whole table of components and prices. Mm-hmm. We have the different sources from the web, and we have obviously your estimates. So you can always enter product master data, prices. You could always look into the past with the spend analysis and the spend trend. Where did you spend for which category buy? Then you see again the price forecasts and the components and prices for the different components. And if it's not, like, you know, we are aware that it's not a 100% fit of what you are currently expecting or needing. And that's now the trick comes in. So we say this covers 50 to 70% of the regular requirements, and the rest is freely configurable. The configurable is we're saying, because if you provide me with your Excel files and says, okay, I see you have the sales and operations, I see you have the buyers initiatives, you have price forecasts, but I need to have a guided workflow. And here's the Excel file, how it currently works. You simply send over the Excel file, we translate it into the cubes, and this is something which you could do later on. If you're trained, your power users could do that later on. But for the start, we would do that for you. And then you would see exactly your use case.